Hi, I'm Maria Geryk, Superintendent of the Amherst, Pelham, and the Amherst, Pelham Regional Schools. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for another segment of Voices from Our Schools. We're fortunate today to have with us Mark Jackson, who's the principal of the high school. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
And two of our faculty members, Sean Smith, who is the department head for World Language, and Leslie Lomasson, who is our high school librarian. So welcome, all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And today, I know we're going to talk a little bit about the NEASC accreditation. And I won't even begin to guess what the acronym stands for. So why don't we start by talking a little bit with maybe Sean and Leslie about kind of what you do at the high school first, your roles, and then we can jump right into the accreditation. So I don't know who'd like to start. They both point to each other.
I'll start.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Leslie Lomasson, and I'm a librarian.
Oh, I said your name incorrectly. I apologize.
I'm a librarian at the high school, and I work full-time doing a combination of teaching and instruction around information literacy skills and everything else that goes with running a library.
And I teach Latin at the high school and the middle school, and I'm the head of the World Language Department.
Great. Thank you so much. And I know you both have been in our schools for a number of years now. Six for you.
And this is my 29th year.
Whew. And Mark, how many for you?
8.
8. Excellent. Well, thank you both and all for being here today. So why don't we talk a little bit, Sean, if you wouldn't mind, about NEASC. Maybe we can start with trying to tease out this acronym, what it actually stands for.
Sure. So NEASC is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and they're the accrediting organization for all the schools in the area. The country has several regions which each has their own accrediting organization.
Okay.
And it's all a volunteer organization. We are all members of it, and as members we send out people to other schools to do visits with them so that we can accredit them. And the people who come to us are all volunteers. There are other educators, there are teachers, administrators, and they're going to come observe our school to look at the self-study we've done and to see our school in operation and to find out what we do well, what they think they can give us suggestions for things we might improve.
I didn't realize that there were a volunteer. I didn't realize that we went out as well. Have any of you been on?
So all three of us have been on.
That's pretty impressive.
And there's other people at school who have too, not just us, other people have gone out on visiting committees.
Well, it's a great opportunity to kind of dive into another school and see how what their programs look like and what their services look like, and have that opportunity to bring the information back. I would imagine it's a pretty important learning opportunity.
It is. In fact, I remember when I went, I was thinking I wanted to do this to learn about how it was going to be for our school. But you just get so into the process about the school you're at. It's very interesting to see how different schools do different things and what they do well, and to watch other people teach and to talk to different members of the school community and to find out how they address all the issues that we're all trying to address in our schools.
And now you're on the other end preparing, and I know this has been a process for quite a while now, so maybe you want to talk a little bit with us about how you both entered into this process on this end and what we've been doing so far. Maybe Leslie,
Well, it's a complicated logistical process that needs a lot of oversight, and there are usually 2 chairs appointed. I know that in other schools the librarian tends to be one of the co-chairs, so I just suggested that I'd be willing to do it, and Mark took me up on my offer.
So actually, let me take that question over, because what I want to do is to give people a sense of why Sean and Leslie, 120 other adults, why these two. So Leslie, I didn't know actually that librarians are typically co-chairs. That's the first time I'd heard that. So Leslie's incredibly well organized, has a history as an organizer. As she said, there are multiple levels of preparation, from hotel arrangements to computer files to the self-study, and she has the skill set to kind of help us navigate through all those things. Sean, long-time presence in the school, very highly regarded academically. I think this is the 2nd time since I've been here that he's won some national award for skillful teaching of Latin. So he has a high credibility in the academic domain, and both of them together made a pretty formidable pair to provide leadership to the building on this task. Because on one level, it's very tedious. Right. While there's a rich return, the investment on a day-to-day basis is lots of hours, and so their stature in the building, I think, made them both natural choices. And so we did a little arm twisting, and
I was gonna say,
both very graciously agreed to provide the leadership that we've enjoyed.
Well, I thought I heard they volunteered. That was impressive. So I know it's been a process. So you've been, how long has it been now? You started this, the process began a year and a half ago? Is that correct?
It's a 3-year process.
Okay.
It started, this is the 3rd year, so it started 2.5, 3 years ago.
Wow, that is quite a process. And so do you want to tell like a little bit about how this process is organized, and what are the committees that are set up at the high school, and how you're kind of doing some of the organizational pieces that?
I can do that.
Great.
There are basically 2 major tracks of work that go on, and there's a 3-year chronology on how you tackle it.
Okay.
The first track is the faculty develop our core values and beliefs and learning expectations for the school.
Okay.
And we develop school-wide rubrics to use with all our students to see that they can meet the learning expectations as set out by the faculty. So that in and of itself begins the first year, that whole discussion and decision-making about how do we define ourselves as an institution and how will we move forward. The second year, you continue on that track and you pick up a second track. Okay. And the continuation of the first track is starting to actually use your rubrics and start to talk with your community about these learning expectations and our core values and beliefs, and start trying to really live those out. But the second track is beginning your self-study. And the self-study is based on 7 standards that NEASC has set out. And those are curriculum, instruction, assessment. Your core values and beliefs and learning expectations are actually a standard. School culture and leadership, community resources for learning, and school resources for learning. And on all those standards, we develop interdepartmental committees to do the self-study. So they gather the committee members, and that's all the faculty. Every single member participated. So those committee members gather evidence. They look at what the standard requires. They discuss it internal to the committee. How are we faring on this? What are we doing really well? What are our challenges? Where do we think we could improve? And they write a narrative. And then that narrative ultimately comes year 3 to the whole faculty, where the faculty vote on what's called the executive summary and the challenges and strengths. And they vote on a rating that the committee has recommended. And the rating is based on a different kind of rubric. This is NEASC's rubrics on the standards. So you can be deficient, limited, acceptable, or exemplary. So I was on school resources for learning, and we studied everything very in detail and decided we were acceptable. We recommended that to the faculty. The faculty reviewed it, and they voted, yes, we agree, we're acceptable. So that was pretty much the process.
And the amount of time that it takes for a group to actually sit and do this level of work of the self-study, and just in itself to say this is what we believe we are, this is our rating. I mean, that's
building in the time for collaboration. We used our late arrival day time to develop our core values and beliefs and learning expectations. We used summer work time to develop our rubrics, and we kept that time slot available for the continuation of reviewing how we're doing with our instruction and assessment related to the rubrics. And then we used our faculty meeting time to break down into our standards committee groups and work as committees.
So it's a large commitment really about all of the use of the faculty time for the visit is going to be occurring shortly?
It is May 6th to 9th.
Okay.
So they're going to arrive on Sunday and leave on Wednesday, and that's how it always works.
And tell me what, again, what that looks like, Sean, when people come to visit. What does the schedule look like? What are they looking for? It sounds like you've done a level of analysis or self-evaluation or self-study. So I'm assuming there's some review of documentation and such, but why don't you kind of walk us through a little bit of that?
So they arrive on Sunday, and we have a reception for them at the school. We have a panel to sort of introduce them to the school. members of the school community, including students, are going to tell them about what we are as a school, try to show them some of what we are as a school. It's a chance for them to address us, the chair of the visiting committee, talking about what they want to do while they're visiting. And they're going to meet with individual teachers to look at student work. This is all still on Sunday. And then they spend a lot of time together looking at our report and putting together their plan for how they want to pursue the different standards that they have to write about. They're divided into the 7 standards as well, because each group has to write a report based on our self-study report and then the evidence that they find themselves. We've been compiling a lot of evidence for them to look at. They're going to be interviewing people. They're interviewing people in the central office. They're interviewing pretty much all members of the school community, parents, school committee, students, teachers, clerical staff, custodial staff. So that they really have a lot of chance to talk about what they are finding in the report. They go into classrooms and watch what happens when students are in there. They shadow students, so they can get a sense of what a student's day is like. And they spend a lot of time writing. So they have a very intense, about 3.5 days that they're here. They're up late at night writing a report, which, while our self-study is probably, I think, the most useful aspect, because we find out a lot of things about ourselves, that then having someone from the outside come and say, you know, we've looked really closely at your school in a bunch of different aspects of it, and here's what we see. That's very helpful, just to get, that's why it's called accreditation. It lets us know, you know, is this credible, what we think we're doing? And we're glad to get some other professionals' opinion on how our school works.
Now, it is pretty impressive that the process itself takes you, like you said, through your own kind of analysis of where you are as a school and where we are as a district in some level, and what kind of a programming, what type of programming or the quality of our programming that we're providing for students. But then getting that, you know, like you said, the objective external perspective is also helpful. And I wonder, I would think that going through this process, schools can either go through it in a way it's kind of tough, and you know, it's more following a process, or you can really use it to leverage the work that you're doing in this school. And I know that it should be of value to us, and it sounds like it has been to all of you to be able to spend that time. And I know,
but that is the challenge, because there are all these steps you have to take to avoid having it feeling like we're just jumping through the hoops to get it accredited. I think we've been very fortunate to be able to work with people, and the staff have taken it very seriously. This is a chance for us to look at what we do so that we can do it better. What do we do well? What are some things that we see, some patterns that maybe we can do better at? And we find that, you know, a lot of good things are going on in the school, but one thing that people really are noticing is we need to find ways to work together collaboratively across department. And that's something that really is a goal for us as we move forward, and that's why these school-wide learning expectations are so helpful. We all want to teach students how to write. So if I have a chance to talk to someone in a different department, that's not something that is naturally worked into our schedule. It's something we really see as a need if we're going to do this well.
That's great. I also, when thinking about having, like, you know, in student services, when we have external people come in and audit our work, sometimes we find that it's less helpful because it's someone else coming in and almost, as you said, they're doing something to the school versus us being engaged in the process ourselves. And it's not dissimilar from how if students are engaged in the process of what's happening within the classroom, they're feeling more of an ownership about the product and such. So it seems like we're really, the way that they've structured this accreditation allows people to really be engaged in and learn from on their own, in addition to just someone coming in and kind of checking the boxes for us. So
and that's why it starts with core values and beliefs. So we have to come together as a community and come up with a statement. Here's what we value about education. Here's what we believe about learning. And then so what are the learning expectations? What do we want students to learn? What programs, procedures do you have in place to make sure students are learning that? How do you measure their progress? And it's all based on what we say is important to us. So it's not MCAS saying, here's how you have to do on this on this test. So it has that, it feels very genuine in that way.
Well, and I find, you know, in my experience being in Amherst, I find that staff are more than willing to sit and look at their practice and to improve what's going on in classrooms for students. And this allows you a structure to actually spend more time there. And hopefully we'll be able to find some collaboration time to continue this level of work. As you said, you know, writing across content areas or having time cross-departmental work. It's a factor of time to be able to have that level of disciplined conversation. So it's exciting. And I know, Leslie, leading up to this, the structural piece of how do you prepare for this level of a visit. I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit around the preparation.
Well, I wanted just to
Please, jump right in.
to add something to what we were
Sure.
talking about, which is, as you talk about the development of core values and beliefs, so one thing we didn't want to do was just, I don't know exactly, I don't want to use a common phrase, but I'm going to say throw away the baby with the bathwater,
Right,
because
right.
this happens every 10 years. And there's a lot of really good work and thinking that has gone into previous visits.
Right.
So how do you, we don't want to start with a blank slate, because we're not a blank slate. We
Right.
have a really rich culture and rich history, and the staff has made a lot of good decisions over the years that have brought Amherst High School to where it is today. So we really wanted to start with some kind of prompt that was about tapping into the rich culture that we already have in our institution. So we really actually started the whole discussion of core values and beliefs and learning expectations with a prompt about, so what learning expectations did you bring to your class today? You know, and had
great.
teachers start just pulling out of their rich experience what they were already doing in the classroom, and then use that as something concrete from which to springboard into re-articulating as well as revising where we're at today. And I think that's really
great.
important to acknowledge the hard work and the rich culture we have, because otherwise people are like, well, why are
Right.
we doing this?
Right.
We did this already.
Right.
And it's, that part is important. In terms of preparing for the visit, I think the major preparation is the work we've been doing, because the committee is going to come in and they're going to be really probing and finding out how we've moved along and where we're at in the process. And the other piece is all logistics. So, you know, it's, like we said, hotel arrangements and setting up a room and getting the technology ready for them. But that's the easy part.
Well, assembling lots of evidence for them to look at, too.
Right. I mean, all the artifacts and gathering all the documents is substantial.
That was all year 2. All that
Okay.
evidence
That
had
was
to
all
be
Leslie.
gathered. We centralized it somewhat. You probably got your manila folder that Mark hand-delivered that said, okay, we would like these from the superintendent. We tried to centralize as much as possible so that that nobody would be approached by 7 different committees
Right.
at once. And that way you got your envelope and it said, for standard 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 7, here's what we would like from you. And hopefully you only got approached once. But it didn't work quite that
I
cleanly.
think I delegated.
Nothing works quite that cleanly. So that's how we started. So the committees had something to start with when they had their very first meeting. And then the committees took on the responsibility of gathering any evidence, which they did not yet have and still needed to do their self-evaluation.
Let me ask one more before we move into kind of some of the findings, because I want to hear what people are, what we're looking at this moment. But I mean, I absolutely love this work, because I know it can sound tedious to people, but it is about really looking at the cycle of like continuous improvement of where we are, where we're going. And I love that it was acknowledging the amazing work that's been that's been happening for a number of years now, and our schools are extremely strong, and we hear every day information about our kids who are doing exceptionally well, and lots of, in the whole comprehensive school. So it can be in any area, academically, chorale or in performance. It's quite amazing, and our staff are committed to not only saying yes, we're great, but also saying now, what do we need to improve on? So I love that was kind of the frame and the setup for. I'm wondering, so each of these standards and having people kind of responsible for looking at this work, did people volunteer? Were they asked? How do people become like the holder of this work?
Every faculty member, correct me if I'm wrong, and every professional staff member were on 2 committees.
Okay.
One was a learning expectation group, and one was a self-study group for a particular standard.
Okay.
They did get some opportunity to choose which ones of
Sure.
those, which learning expectation were they most invested in,
Sure.
or which.
They could express a preference.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
No, that's
And
great.
most people
And we
you're
reached out to
assigned
people to be
groups.
co-chairs for,
Right.
so each
This
committee
is a
needed
substantial amount of
co-chairs.
work to be
A
chairing
lot of
or
people had to
co-chairing.
take leadership positions. Just a lot of things had to be done.
There were 2 chairs for every standard committee, so that's 14 people right there. And then there were leaders for every learning expectation group, leading the process. They're very broad and deep leadership in the process.
That's great. Well, there's the investment too. I look forward to the visit and meeting the people who are coming. And I will be there. I'm scheduled, I know, for multiple things at this moment, and I'm looking forward to it. And as well as I'm looking forward to, their results at the end. But I know that the self-study right now, there are some findings or some things that you maybe want to mention or speak to. I don't know if there are things that you wanted to speak about that now, or anything that kind of jumped out.
So in some ways, the finding, the term finding creates an expectation that there's been some major blind spots, right? That if not for the self-study, we would have been kind of continuing on oblivious to, and that's not how this is played out, right? If anything, it's strengthened our sense of what our challenges are, right? By giving us a vehicle to name them, explain them, and in doing so, point the way forward to what does continuous improvement actually look like. So the kinds of things that sit atop of our interest list, because as a result of the self-study, one of the other expectations of the process is that schools develop a list of critical strengths and needs, and then from that, they develop a set of 2- and 5-year plans.
Great.
So the 2-year plan are things that you want to get at right now. 5-year plan have some degree of urgency, but are slightly at the back of the queue right now. Right. And those kinds of things are really consistent with a lot of things, Maria, that you've been talking about since you've been here. So does this schedule enable an intense, continuous level of collaboration, both within departments and across departments, right? That's the priority of collaboration is definitely a highly held value in terms of NEASC. Making sure that that curriculum is aligned, that assessments are cleanly aligned with curriculum, and that data is routinely gathered, that it's reflected on, that it drives instructional decision-making process. So all those things that we've been working on, this was an opportunity to really kind of, with a sober eye, assess how far down the road to really getting good at these things are we, and what are the things that we could do to continually strengthen ourselves. So smoking gun, not so much, right? Deepening our sense of kind of where we are on the road that we've been on, I think has been the primary value that the self-study creates.
Well, and it sounds like from what we've talked about, it's very consistent with the work that the district's really been focusing on for the past few years, and it's really it's not something, oh, now we have to go down this road. It's really just helping us to leverage the work of where we were and where we're going to. We know what will improve outcomes for all of our kids. So I find it, it sounds ridiculous, but I find it very exciting work because it does actually provide us with information that will help us to inform our practice. So it's really exciting. And thank you for doing this for a chunk of time. So maybe if we could talk a little bit about how the self-study and the final report will take us down the next road. So what is the timeline for all of this? So that they come and they...
So they come for the 4 days.
Okay.
And then, so I'm basing this on my own experience. So I was on a visiting committee the first week of November. Yeah. About 3 weeks ago, I got the final version of their report that I participated in writing. I don't know what your experience was.
Well, the first thing they do, though, is at a Wednesday faculty meeting, they give sort of a preliminary
that's right.
response.
But then there's multiple editing opportunities. So they do a draft. They send it back to the school for preliminary feedback.
Great.
Factual difficulties, any kind of inconsistencies. They send it out to professional editor. So it really gets a lot of attention. And then at some point it goes to, I can't think of the exact phrase, but NEASC convenes a set of evaluators, and they make some ultimate determination about the status of the school. And that can be you're good, you're mostly good, and you have a few challenges. Right. You're mostly not good and you have a whole lot of challenges. They tell you kind of where you sit on their continuum. And so that's probably a 4 or 5 month process. So probably we're into the early fall,
Okay.
right before we would get that kind of
Okay.
that document, that final polished document back.
Okay, so but we'll get some feedback now, which again, you know, the self-study I'm sure has really like highlighted, like as you said, not findings, but highlighted, you know, our strengths in the areas in which we want to move, you know, consistently with, I'm sure, the school improvement plan and such, to move us down the road of continuous improvement. And then we will have at some point in the fall, most likely,
Right.
a much more formal document and report, which I will be very interested to see. So we only have a few minutes left in our conversation, so I just want people to have the opportunity. I mean, to thank people and to also, you know, make comments that you want to leave with the community around this process, because clearly I'm thankful for all of the staff that have put the energy into this, and I've heard people's commitment to actually using this in the, I think, this spirit in which it's been intended, which is to actually look at objectively, critically, with a critical eye, where we are now, and really lay out the roadmap of where we want to go, and not just jump through the hoops or check off the boxes. So I want to, you know, acknowledge that to the community, that staff have done an exceptional job engaging in this process, and then all of you who have taken on such leadership roles. And I know it's hard to do at times the day-to-day and the district work and the school improvement work and this other large process on top, and thankfully it's you know, interconnected,
right.
very much so. But I know that can be it's important to make those connections and, you know, connect the dots for people, so it doesn't feel like as much of a, you know, another thing.
Yeah,
So,
and the self-study is an important part, not just because of what we find out, but because of the process itself. So I was on the standard on instruction, so
Right.
I'm part of that is talking to other teachers about how we teach.
Right.
And those are always exciting conversations, because you always learn something,
Right.
not only about what the life of the school is like, but that you can use in your own practice. So I think everyone comes away from those kind of
Right.
charged up with you know, new ideas, and sort of just inspired by hearing what other people are doing
That's
in
great.
their practice. So the chance to work with other teachers is always exciting to us, because
Yeah.
teaching can be so isolating.
Right.
Now, we're in our classroom with our kids a lot, and we love that. But to have the opportunity to talk to other professionals and to work with other professionals to get better at it, I think people find very exciting, because good teachers want to get better.
yes, they do, and it is having a regular opportunity to collaborate is critically important for people to be able to do that and not to be isolated in classrooms. So, you know, you all know how I feel about that, but it's critically important. Other things that Leslie or Mark want to get in, because we're at 2 minutes.
So
and
I think the tone and tenor that Leslie and Sean have laid out, I think
Right.
is a legitimate one. An organizing image that we've tried to use is that, and actually people who've been out have come back with stories about schools who participated in this. As soon as the folks left, they went like, cut.
Yeah.
We're going to go back. And so we really tried at the beginning to cut a very different tone and tenor. And one of the images that we use with people is this: we're interested in building an Olympic village, so after all the athletes go home and the Klieg lights go off,
Right.
you've got the dormitories and the track and the pool, and you're going to live with those things for a long time. And you want to make sure that those are things you've built yourself, you've added to your infrastructure in a way that enables the core mission to go forward and much more effectively. And I think there was probably some resonance at the beginning of the process when we were talking about we're not interested in jumping through hoops. It appealed to the best part of people, and that's what they brought to the table. And I do think that at the end, we'll all be exhausted and have killed lots of trees and expended lots of paper. And it's also the case that we'll be able to look back and forward and say we're better for having done this.
Right.
And ultimately, that's the measure of the process.
Well, thank you, and again, I appreciate the leadership, because how you walked through this process was in a large part due to the framing that you all provided. So, and the enthusiasm as educators to improve. So, thank you all very much, and I think that's it for today.